1 Samuel 4. The word of Samuel befell all of Israel. Israel went out to war against the Philistines. They encamped at Ebenezer, while the Philistines encamped at Aphek. The Philistines arrayed themselves opposite Israel, and the battle spread. Israel was smitten before the Philistines. They slew about 4,000 men in the battlefield. The people came to the camp, and the elders of Israel said, "Why did Hashem smite us today before the Philistines? Let us take with us from Shiloh the ark of the covenant of Hashem, that he may come in our midst and save us from the hands of our enemies." So the people sent to Shiloh and carried from there the ark of the covenant of Hashem, master of legions, who dwells atop the cherubim. And the two sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, were there along with the ark of the covenant of God. When the ark of the covenant of Hashem arrived at the camp, all of Israel sounded a great shofar blast, and the ground shook. The Philistines heard the sound of the blast, and they said, "What is the sound of this great blast in the camp of the Hebrews?" And they became aware that the ark of Hashem had come to the camp. The Philistines were afraid, and they said, "God has come to the camp." And they said, "Woe to us, for such a thing had not happened yesterday or the day before. Woe to us! Who will save us from the hand of this mighty God? This is the God who struck the Egyptians with all kinds of plagues in the wilderness. Be strong, O men, O Philistines, lest you become enslaved to the Hebrews, as they have been enslaved to you. Be men and fight." So the Philistines fought. Israel was smitten, and they ran, every man to his tents. The blow was very great. 30,000 foot soldiers fell from Israel. The ark of God was taken, and the two sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, died. A Benjamite man ran up from the battlefield and came to Shiloh that day, his clothing ripped and earth upon his head. When he came, Eli was seated in a chair next to the road, looking out, for his heart was fearful about the ark of God. The man arrived to inform the city, and the entire city cried out. Eli heard the sound of the outcry and said, "What is the commotion of this multitude?" And the man hastened. He came and told Eli. Now, Eli was 98 years old. His eyes had become motionless, and he could not see. The man said to Eli, "I am the one who came from the battlefield, and I ran from the battlefront today." Eli said, "What is the report, my son?" The bearer of tidings answered him, saying, "Israel ran from before the Philistines, and there was a great blow among the people. Also, your two sons, Hophni and Phinehas, died, and the ark of God was taken." As soon as he mentioned the ark of God, Eli fell backwards off his chair opposite the site of the city gate, breaking his neck, and he died, for the man was old and heavy. He had judged Israel for 40 years. His daughter-in-law, the wife of Phinehas, was soon to give birth. And when she heard the news about the capture of the ark of God and that her father-in-law had died, and her husband, she crouched down and gave birth, for her labor pains came upon her. As she was about to die, those standing around her spoke to her, "Fear not, for you have borne a son." But she did not answer, and she did not take it to her heart. She called the boy Ishabod, saying, "Glory has been exiled from Israel, because of the capture of the ark of God, and because of the deaths of her father-in-law and her husband." And she said, "Glory has been exiled from Israel, for the ark of God has been captured." 1 Samuel 5. The Philistines had taken the ark of God and brought it from Ebenezer to Ashdod. The Philistines took the ark of God and brought it to the house of Dagon, placing it next to Dagon. The Ashdodites arose early the next day, and behold, Dagon had fallen upon its face to the ground before the ark of Hashem. So they took Dagon and returned it to its place. They arose early the next morning, and again Dagon had fallen upon its face to the ground before the ark of Hashem. And Dagon's head and the two palms of his hands were severed, lying upon the threshold. Only Dagon's body remained intact. This is why the priests of Dagon and all those who come to the house of Dagon do not tread upon the threshold of Dagon in Ashdod to this day. The hand of Hashem then became heavy against the Ashdodites, and he devastated them. He struck them, Ashdod and its surrounding areas, with hemorrhoids. The men of Ashdod saw that it was so, and they said, "Let the ark of God of Israel not stay with us, for its hand has been hard against us and against Dagon, our God." They summoned and gathered all the governors of the Philistines to them, and they said, "What shall we do about the ark of the God of Israel?" They replied, "Let the ark of the God of Israel be transferred to Gath." So they transferred the ark of the God of Israel. It was after they transferred it that the hand of Hashem was set against the city, causing a great commotion. The hemorrhoid struck the people of the city, from small to great, and they were afflicted internally with hemorrhoids. They then sent the ark of God to Ekron. It happened when the ark of God arrived in Ekron that the people of Ekron cried out, saying, "They have transferred to me the ark of the God of Israel to kill me and my people." So they summoned and gathered all the governors of the Philistines and said to them, "Send away the ark of the God of Israel. Let it return to its place and not kill me and my people." For there was a panic of death in the whole city. The hand of God was very heavy there. The people who did not die were stricken with hemorrhoids, and the outcry of the city ascended to heaven. 1 Samuel 6. The ark of Hashem had been in the land of the Philistines for 7 months. The Philistines called upon the priests and the sorcerers, saying, "What shall we do about the ark of Hashem? Inform us how we should send it back to its place." They replied, "If you are sending back the ark of the God of Israel, you must not send it back empty-handed, but you must certainly send back a guilt offering to him. Then you will be healed, and you will realize why his hand would not turn away from against you." So they said, "What is the guilt offering that we should send back to him?" They answered, "According to the number of Philistine governors, 5 golden images of hemorrhoids and 5 golden mice. For the same plague is upon all of you and upon your governors. Make your images of hemorrhoids and your images of mice, which are demolishing the country, and give them as homage to the God of Israel. Perhaps he will alleviate his hand from upon you and your gods and your land. Why should you harden your hearts as Egypt and Pharaoh hardened their hearts? Did it not happen that when he mocked them, they had to send the Israelites forth, and they left? So now, take materials and make 1 new wagon, and take 2 nursing cows upon whom a yoke was never placed, and tie the cows to the wagon, and send their calves back home from behind them. Then take the ark of Hashem and place it onto the wagon, and put the golden objects that you are sending back to him as a guilt offering in a box at its side. Send it forth, and it will go. Then you will see, if it ascends by the road to its boundary toward Beth Shemesh, then it was he who brought upon us all this great evil. But if not, we will know that his hand did not afflict us, but it was all by chance that this befell us." The men did so. They took 2 nursing cows and tied them to the wagon, and secured their calves at home. They placed the ark of Hashem onto the wagon, along with the box and the golden mice and their images of hemorrhoids. The cows set out on the direct road, on the road to Beth Shemesh. On a single road did they go, lowing as they went, and they did not veer right or left. The governors of the Philistines went behind them until the border of Beth Shemesh. The people of Beth Shemesh were reaping the wheat harvest in the valley when they raised their eyes and saw the ark, and they rejoiced to see it. The wagon came to the field of Joshua, a Beth Sheshemite, and stopped there, where there was a large rock. They chopped the boards of the wagon and offered up the cows as an elevation offering to Hashem. The Levites had unloaded the ark of Hashem and the box that was with it, in which were the golden objects, and placed them upon the large rock. The people of Beth Shemesh offered up elevation offerings and slaughtered feast offerings on that day to Hashem. The 5 Philistine governors saw all this and returned to Ekron on that day. These are the golden hemorrhoids that the Philistines sent as a guilt offering to Hashem. For Ashdod, 1. For Gaza, 1. For Ashkelon, 1. For Gath, 1. For Ekron, 1. And golden mice corresponding to the number of all Philistine cities of the 5 governors, who ruled from fortified city until the open village, until a great mourning stone, upon which they placed the ark of Hashem, which to this day is in the field of Joshua, the Beth Sheshemite. And he smote some of the men of Beth Shemesh because they peered disrespectfully into the ark of Hashem. He struck among them 70 men, 50,000 men. The people mourned because Hashem had smitten the people with a great blow. And the people of Beth Shemesh said, Who can possibly stand before Hashem, this holy God? To whom can the ark ascend from among us? They then sent emissaries to the inhabitants of Kiriath Jearim, saying, The Philistines have returned the ark of Hashem. Come down and bring it up unto yourselves. Hello, welcome back. Thank you for watching. This is the NQE, episode 124, and that was Samuel 4-6. I'm wondering, what do you think Eli's sons were thinking when they were heading into battle, followed by this ark of God? If they believed in Hashem and they believed in this power, then that means that they would have to believe in the holy and the do good and all these sorts of things. These guys, man, they were doing with the women, it was not right. They were stealing the sacrifice. It was exactly the opposite. So what do they see when they see this golden box? How could they be so abusive with their calling? The irony of this entire display is that obviously Hashem is trying to get something else accomplished. And apparently the oppression of the Philistines to the Israelites was so severe. The Philistines are like, guys, these Hebrews are going to do to us what we have been doing to them. So you got to tighten up and be a man and fight and all these things. And this is despite the fact that during this call to action, they're literally saying, this is the serious God that has a tremendous amount of power. For these reasons, you have to try even harder. And everybody's like, okay, yay. And they go out and they win. Now you have to wonder, would there have been another way that the Hebrews could have known that God had actually abandoned their cause? The answer is yes. They could have prayed. They could have done one of the rituals that Moses did, offer a lamb or whatever. And this was the way that the communication was done. It was sort of like this entire process. But what happened here is that the people, they already knew everything. So they did not petition God. But even Moses petitioned God, like all the time. So unceremoniously, this ark is carted into battle like as if it was a machine gun. But obviously, exactly the opposite was set to occur. And the fulfillment of this prophecy of total destruction comes through, and Eli and all of his sons die. So does Hashem invite war with the Philistines so that he can destroy Eli and his sons? In the earlier chapter, we read that there was no vision, therefore there was no God. And indeed, right now we understand that the Philistines are subjugating the Hebrews. And listen, the only time that this happens is when these guys have gone in a different direction. What's happening here, I think, is the natural course of events for the Hebrews when they abandoned God. And in particular, this ruling structure, the priests, get out of town, wipe them out. It's like a revolution or a whole new thing. Hopefully, the nation will see the connection of scumbag priests and their destruction, and they will have low tolerance for the worthless liars that treated abusively, which is what we're seeing here. There is a little bit more irony to this story because this Philistine land, these major cities, they end up in possession of this ark, and they come to recognize in an unbelievably personal way that this ark of God carries with it a power that they can't deny it. So first, they put this box inside of their church right next to the statue of their God. Okay, so this statue of their God, it has its head cut off and its hands cut off, and it has fallen before the ark of God. Now, what do you think it meant to these guys when they saw this happen? I mean, obviously, they're going to say, oh, the Hebrews must have come in and they're doing this as a surprise or whatever, but they probably set up guards. Somebody vandalized our God. The Hebrews are here protecting our God or whatever. But the next day it happens with the head cut off. This is a mob style hit and a message is being sent. So what is the message? I would say it's pretty straightforward. And this God, this fish man, God, Dagon, is not a real thing. No hands, can't do anything, no head, completely impotent, existing only inside the minds of the people who believe. Then, for 7 months, not 6 months, not 8 months, 7 months, God delivers to these people the most horrifying hemorrhoids that they've ever experienced in their entire lives, that they say it has to be the ark of God. Now, here is what I'm thinking about this magic number 7. For the first 3 or 4 months, all of these elders and the doctors and the legal people, they probably said, hey, it's the water. Don't drink the water. And then they did a different thing. Or you have to use this product. And then they said, nope, that's not going to work. And eventually, after enough misery and horror of hemorrhoids, the people said, yeah, this has got to be God. That's when they come together and they bring in these priests and they're like, what in the world have we gotten ourselves into? Clearly, this is a heck of a lot of power. The thing about Dagon and the cut off head, whatever. Now we know. These priests are like, fantastic. Send it back, but you got to pay. So these wise men and these elders of the Philistines, clearly, they understand things from a spiritual perspective. They're looking around and they're saying, okay, God, I see that you have afflicted us with hemorrhoids. That's at a level 55. Got it? And the thing with the rats destroying everything in the whole world. Yes, message received. So they tell these guys, you have to give to God golden hemorrhoids and golden rats because that's what we see. This is so that there is no confusion. Very clear message. The God of the Hebrews is not a nonsense thing at all. In fact, they offer to Hashem what they have seen with their eyes as an offering so that it can be acknowledged. Yes, Hashem, you are the power. You've done these things. So sorry. They're going to send this ark back, but as a final test, just to make sure they do the thing with the cows and the moms. And obviously these cows, they're going to want to go home to the babies. And they've never pulled anything, so maybe they'll be uncomfortable or they'll be too tender. These priests rationalize, if Hashem is legit and this whole thing has happened because of him and we actually do need to send this ark back, then Hashem will lead these cows back to wherever it is that he wants this ark to be done, and he will forgive us and we will get rid of these hemorrhoids and we can sit down. And this entire process is to test definitively, is this happening legit from God? And their answer comes, and it is. Yeah, totally. It is from God. After all of this, the ark goes back to this place and the people see it and they say, oh my gosh, I'm so happy that this is happening. Everything in the world is correct. Whatever it is to be disrespectful towards the ark, that's what they do. And God punishes them not with hemorrhoids, not with rats. No, to these, he just goes ahead and he pops them. There's 70 and then 50,000 men. So I'm guessing the 70 is probably like the council or the elders. And then the 50,000 are probably just regular people who are familiar with the story and who went to go see the ark or touch it or do whatever it is that they are not supposed to do. That's what they did. You see, the Philistines, they're not supposed to know how to treat the ark. They don't have the rules. Those rules are in Shiloh, inside the ark, written in the language that's spoken by the Hebrews. The Philistines are supposed to take the ark. That's the booty or the spoils of their war. Put it into their religious house where they keep all of their artifacts of gold. They make an offering to their God. All of this makes perfect sense. Message given to them, hemorrhoids, so that they'll know and they'll learn, and then they'll later know that we got a fake God. The real power God is over here. The Hebrews, God's children, the one to whom he has made this promise. They are the ones who are disrespectful towards the ark. You don't expect that to happen. I guess you could be aware that it might happen, but you would anticipate that they would be rejoiceful. They would restore the ark to its position in the tabernacle in Shiloh. The people of Beth Shemesh ask, who can stand in front of Hashem? And this is the question to be asked and answered. Who? Well, we know who. The Kohen Gadol, once a year, after he's been completely sanctified and he's got the clothes on and he's done the ephod, and he's got the blood and he's got the incense and the whole thing, the little bells on his dress, and he goes inside the thing and he does the incense in front of, that's who can go in front of God. No, nobody else can. There's like a whole book. The only thing it basically describes is God's over here, everybody in the world's over here. What's in the middle are these priests, and their job is to be holy and to be sanctified, to separate themselves from the world. Can you sense it? Can you sense the separation? these guys, they don't know. They have no idea. That's it for today. Thank you for watching. Let's keep going. The NQE is out.